Hello everybody and welcome back to the Watson's Wine YouTube channel. Today we're very excited to have Quentin Paillard, the 8th generation wine grower of Pierre Paillard, with me today. With deep-rooted tradition in the Beaujolais region, Quentin crafts exceptional champagnes that showcases the region's unique terroirs. Let's dive into his journey and gain some insights into the wonderful world of grower champagne. Welcome, Quentin.
Thank you. And before we begin, do not forget like, share, or subscribe the Watson Wine channel on YouTube.
So before we get into the wonderful world of grower champagne, I think it's important that we get to know Quentin a little bit better. So we prepared 10 wonderful quickfire questions that will help us get to know Quentin a little bit better.
I've been involved officially since 2010, but my father retired in 18, so 2018 is the deal breaker. I think Les Parcelles from Bouzy, because it's a blend of all of our vineyards. It has our visions, our terroir in the bottle, so great wine, Les Parcelles from Bouzy. Every day drinking, I'd say maybe Loire from Chenin Blanc, and weekend wines, white Burgundies. Well, the vineyard I know the most is probably Champagne, and Bouzy and Verzenay. Verzenay on the north of the Montagne d'Arras, unique village. Go to food pairing Champagne, something more elevated, maybe like scallops with aged Parmesan, and something more casual, maybe some fried chicken. Biggest mentor, I would say my father, of course, played a very important role, and then people I worked with before coming back to the winery, both at wineries in Burgundy, some in restaurants, and just people from the trade who have gathered and exchanged knowledge for the last almost 40 years. Terroir driven, I think. Yeah, rich, bold, without compromise, with a strong sense of justice. There is justice in viticulture to make the right wine. By not thinking about the vineyard anymore. You know, once the grapes are in, you could not care less almost about the weather. It's the only time of year you can actually relax and not look at the weather forecast. I think the spring, because Champagne looks absolutely beautiful, like a little garden in the spring. The buds are starting to come out, and I think the fall, where all the leaves change color, it's very beautiful.
Now that we've learned a little bit more about Quentin, I think it would be great to learn a little bit more about Pierre Paillard itself. But before we do that, cheers.
Santé.
Could you tell me a little bit more about Pierre Paillard?
Sure. So we are growers in the village of Bouzy, Pinot Noir dominated village. We've been there for 8 generations. Winery that's been established by my grandfather Pierre after the war in '46. Now we run the winery with my brother, Antoine, with a very strong focus on viticulture. The vineyards are grown and certified organic. We grow mostly Pinot Noir. Wines are aged in barrel for a year before they're all bottled under cork for vintage wines. And then, yeah, the wines show a true expression of Bouzy. They are warm, they're vinous, they're rich, yet there is a strong mineral tension in the wines with the right viticulture.
Yeah, they're absolutely amazing. I mean, just had the privilege to taste them. Some really unique things that you have going on there, which is the barrel aging,
Sure.
barrel aging under cork for the vintage, and phenomenal to taste these kind of single varietal expressions out of Bouzy. You touched on it that Pierre Paillard is a grower. You guys are a grower champagne. So
Yep.
Can you give me some general thoughts around grower champagnes in the current modern world at the moment, or in the current state?
Grower Champagne in 2025 means more terroir-driven wines, wine that have stronger identity, that often relates to a place or an individual, but I think more and more about the place, not so much about the winemaker. So people speak more about vintage, about places, about vinifications, but wines also have different stories depending where they're made and who has made them. And finally, I think more clarity. People are saying, okay, that's what's inside the bottle. We're not hiding anything. We're actually proud to say, this is what we did, and that's why it tastes like that. So, and I think people can relay with grower champagne because there is sincerity, authenticity from the people who make it to the final bottle. People understand why they might have to spend money in champagne because we're telling them this X, Y, and Z happen in the bottle. If you don't provide clarity, if it's just a name or marketing, then people will I think back off from the category as a whole of champagne because they lose face and value, and why pay a lot for just bubbles? There is great wine made around the world, but I think champagne has a strong card to play with growers and people who make trial-driven wines. We're not alone in this boat. I think there is a great movement now in Champagne of people making fantastic wines. The climate maybe help a little bit in consistency, bringing a little bit more ripeness overall in the region, so the wines have become a bit more expressive. They might be a little less acidic than they used to be like 20, 30 years ago, but I think for good reason. It's because the yields have gone down, people are using oak barrel again like us, people are more patient, more precise. There's knowledge that we've gathered for, you know, in our generations before coming back to the winery that we put in place, and I think it's in great motion right now. There's a very exciting time for Champagne.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear. Because when I hear you speak, I hear the passion come through. I hear, the focus on, it's the quality,
Sure.
it's the yields. There's people behind these grower champagnes, personalities. But as you mentioned earlier, it's actually mainly also around the geography of where it comes from. So it's not necessarily just a person, but the geography as well as the person together.
Yeah.
So again, I guess probably what people would have a question around is that, most consumers, you would say these days, are very familiar with, let's say, the larger champagne houses. That's what they know. The marketing machine
Sure.
runs very well to them. So how do you think grower champagne in particular is turning consumers away from these kind of bigger houses and converting into, say, converting to a grower champagne consumer?
I think wine with greater emotion, wine with a mineral element, a spice element, sometimes when you put wine in barrels or playing with oxidation or reduction. The wine are not just bubbles. There is more than bubbles. You can actually put the wine of champagne into your larger size glasses. So you let it breathe, you let it see evolve, and you can put it at the table. It's not just an aperitif wine or something to do a champagne shower or celebrate, the end of the race. There is a wine behind the bubbles, and I think people are realizing this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having just tasted these wines, I can attest that there is an unbelievable depth of flavor and complexity that comes through the wines. Amazing to drink by themselves, but I mean, I can easily see them stacking up, as a wonderful accompaniment to pairing with food. I really was blown away by the tasting we had a little bit before this. So, yeah, thank you. So moving on, would you say that this kind of growing trend of people moving over to, from the kind of big champagne houses into more, seeking out kind of more unique experiences with grower champagnes, is this part of the reason that you're expanding your vineyards within the region?
Indeed, yes. I think we're starting to put village on the map. Something that in Burgundy people know of, maybe familiar with some of the big names from the Côte de Nuit, like Chambol or Vaudromanée. This is not yet the case in Champagne. I think it's important for growers to bring clarity in message. You say where the wine is from and put it on the label so people understand, okay, what are the best Pinot Noir places in Champagne? And there are Bouzy, Ambonnay, Verzenay. Those villages resonate for us living in the region as some of the best places to grow Pinot Noir and make sparkling wine in the entire world. We need to put those villages on the map for consumers. They need to know Bouzy, Ambonnay, Verzenay as being some of the most magical places to grow Pinot Noir and making champagne from. And in 2018, I decided with my brother to start to make wine outside of Bouzy, which was new for my family, which they almost never did in the 200 years that we had vineyards in Bouzy. And we started with the village of Verzenay, which is a Pinot Noir from the north. And this year we are actually excited to release a new wine from Ambonnay, which is a village right next to Bouzy, yet very different in its expression. Beautiful Pinot Noir.
Oh, amazing. Well, we've actually got that on the lineup to talk about a little bit later.
Yep.
Something you mentioned to me a little bit earlier. What's your up and coming village to watch? You were very passionate about it.
Well, I think Verzenay.
Yep.
Because it was kind of like the secret garden of some of the large houses. You had maybe 2 or 3 producers making really fantastic wine from the village, but I think now that village will resonate more and more. Verzenay, you're north facing on the Montagne de Reims, on the slope, so ideal conditions. And now that the harvests are happening a little sooner than they used to, so you're looking at the beginning of September, you get enough luminosity that the grapes can ripe very often, almost consistently every year, even though you're on the north. So higher acidity, very precise, mineral-driven Champagne, Blanc de Noir, Pinot Noir for the most part.
Amazing. Well, you heard it here first. There's an A. So let's keep moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the ageability of grower champagne in general, and maybe your champagnes. I think we've got 2 fantastic examples here. So please help me with the pronunciations so I don't mince it on the YouTube channel. But we basically have, correct me if I'm wrong here, we have a Parcels blend, a non-vintage, which is a blend of your Grand Cru. Majority of Pinot Noir.
Absolutely.
A little bit of Chardonnay in it.
Yeah, about 20%.
About 20%. Yep. We then have one of your single vineyard projects, which is again 100% Pinot Noir, I believe.
Indeed, yes. Called Les Maillerettes.
Les Maillerettes, yeah.
Les Maillerettes, yeah.
And that's a vintage champagne.
It's a vintage champagne that we produce every year since 2007, with a few exceptions like 2011, which was a tough vintage in Champagne. So it's a wine that we've made every year since. Because it checks all the boxes. You're looking at Grand Cru position on the slope, whole vine, so yields are quite low, and deep root into the chalk, and you're on the hill. So in terms of geology, it's always better on the hill than when it's more flat. It's older soil very often, and the chalk brings a lot of tension and salinity. Those Blanc de Noir that makes you salivate. Great food pairing wine. It pumps back very well with whatever you're eating, almost.
Yeah, it's amazing. And how would that age? Would that be okay? Would you be able to lie that down for a while, or would you recommend? It's at its peak. It's at its peak now.
Well, when you put wine under contact with oxygen early on in its life, which is the case for us at Pierre Paillard, the wine ferments in barrels and then actually age under second fermentation under cork. The wine actually has a great ability to sustain oxygen throughout its life. And it's the case for Les Maillerettes, and the vintage is like 2019, probably one of the best we've had since 2012. Wine can age for 20 years, no problem. So of course, vintage will have different ageability, but 19, you're looking at very good vintages. Yeah.
Amazing. And compared to the Les Pastels, sorry, excuse my pronunciation again, because that's a non-vintage.
Indeed. Yes.
So would you say they could age up against each other and go for as long as each other, or
if only? But there is a justice in terroir, and there is a justice also in the age of the vineyards. Yeah. You cannot compete against old vine Maillerettes. Les Parcelles is a blend of all of our vineyards, including young plots and older vineyards. And while it's very bright and elegant, you don't have the same ageability as you can have with a single vineyard champagne.
Yeah. Okay, 100% makes sense. Yeah, very well, thank you, great answers. But you also produce still red wine Pinot Noir. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, and how much does that make up of your total production? And third part to the question, do you foresee generally still red wines becoming a bigger part of the Bosey
production?
Yeah, production.
Yeah, well, still red for Bouzy is not new. Like, I have bottles that are more than 100 years old in my cellar from Bouzy. We've always been producing still wine. Why? Well, because we're south-facing slope, so we always had the ability to get the fruit of the ripers and our neighbors in Champagne. And also we have clay, which when you produce red wine is better, because the chalk works wonders for Champagne, but to produce still wine, it's actually nice to have a deeper topsoil. So the tannins concentrate, you have more aromatic, the wines are richer, and you also have more structure in the wines. So for us at Pierre Paillard, we have one plot that's richer in clay, called Les Mignottes. It's all vine, mid-slope Pinot Noir. We produce it almost every year now. In rare occasion, we pass, and when we do, it's about 5 to 7 barrels. So you're looking at very small productions.
Small production.
Yeah.
So yeah, your champagne production way bigger than your still wine.
Indeed, yes.
Will you increase it a little bit if you can, or are you just going to keep it focused on that single vineyard?
It is not an easy task because you have to find the right site. If you have vineyards where the topsoil is very thin, you find a choke, it is not ideal to produce red wine. Therefore, I do not think that red wine production will increase dramatically even if the climate changed a lot. It's because there are many places in Champagne where you can actually produce very structured, vinous red wine. You can, of course, make red wine everywhere, but it will be too thin-bodied, and I don't think it will be what people will enjoy. So stick to the best area, the best vineyards that can produce this red, and some vineyards are actually, of course, preferred for Champagne, which is the majority.
Yeah, perfect. So there we go. So don't expect a massive increase in production and still red wine out of Champagne anytime soon. So get your hands on some, definitely some Mr. Piles over here. What do you think is the future for generally grower champagne? How far do you think it can go?
You see a movement from families like mine who's growing beyond their existing vineyard, sometimes buying a little bit of grapes that's not blended, but extending a little bit their portfolio of wines, because we all share a passion for wine first. So sometimes it's a bit frustrating to be contained to your own garden. Sometimes you like to venture outside of the unknown, of what you don't know. But I think the future is bright. I think people are seeking more for authenticity and sincerity in what they drink, what they eat, and grower champagne provide that. You can read what you taste. People want to know what they eat. People want to know what they drink. And also, champagne and grower champagne, I think, offers amazing value because we provide wines that's ready to drink while it also has the ability to age. Like, we do the work. Like right now, Les Parcelles is based on the harvest 2020. We're in 2025. The wine has been in the cellar for 4 years. You buy it right now, it's in place, it's balanced already. And nowadays, consumers don't have space to sell our wine. They are sometimes impatient for the right reason. I will be also, buy a bottle, it's ready. If you want to keep it for a couple of years, it also works fine because champagne has high acidity. It's preserved with CO2, you're in good shape.
You touched on it a little bit earlier in the video, so I want to go back to that. You had 2 new projects come into the fore. So we've spoken about 2 of the wines already here, but we have your vineyard of Tassie, or the village of Tassie, sorry, where you started to produce from, and the Abonnet, the Grand Cru, which is also in year 2020, which is an all vines Pinot Noir.
Indeed.
Could you talk us through a little bit about those 2 projects?
Sure. So Tassie is a relatively unknown village that is located on the northern part of the Montagne de Reims, halfway through the city of Reims and the mountain. So you're north-facing vineyards with topsoil of clay and chalk underneath it. So it's meunier that is made from old vine meunier, so the roots find the chalk. So it makes for meunier that's very bright, elegant. Of course, a brand of meunier, varietal-driven wines. Fantastic, very easy to pair with food, even when spicy. It has enough body and structure to sustain the spiciness. And then Ambonnet is the little sister or the older brother, I don't know, of Bouzy, right next to the village of Bouzy, but also very different because it's south-facing and southeast-facing, and that makes a big difference. So the Pinot Noir is also quite powerful and vinous, yet it has a restrained power that sometimes Bouzy is more lush and powerful. So Ambonnet is a fantastic Pinot Noir village. And our first vintage of Ambonnet is 2020. It's a blend of 6 old vines. So it's a very good representation of the entire terroir of vineyards that are facing the south and the southeast on soil that are chalk driven, and sometimes you find little stone that we build houses from in Champagne. So different expression of Pinot Noir throughout the village, blended together, on the list for 4.5 years, always finished dry. You just have 2 grams of dosage. Great food wine again.
Oh, amazing. Well, I'm looking very forward to trying that. Quentin, thank you so much for sharing that incredible insights and all of your experiences. It's been fantastic getting to know you We hope to see you in Hong Kong again
Absolutely.
soon. And thank you for making such absolutely delicious wines and champagnes. Yeah, I'm a massive fan after the tasting that I did today. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Watson's Wine YouTube channel. See you again soon. Cheers.
Au revoir.
Cheers.
Santé.